Because one thing I've learned is this, in politics and in combat, cowardice is contagious, but so is courage. And if you're willing to be the first person over those ramparts, you will be shocked at how many people will come with you. I'm asking you to come with me. I'm asking you to be a part of the generation that will restore the promise of this country and breathe new life into it.
Hi, this is Team Freitas, and today on Making the Argument, we're going to be going over the congressional race that we're currently running. We're going to be talking to you about some of the things that went on. We just had our nominating contest on Saturday. In fact, let me just go ahead and back up and apologize that this podcast is coming out so late, but we did have a very, very important convention that we conducted on Saturday. It was the method by which we selected the Republican nominee. Very proud to say that we won because of the hard work of our campaign staff, our volunteers, all the delegates that came out and sat in the sun for, oh my gosh, like 12 hours in order to select our nominee. So it was an exciting time, but I want to take you through some of the mechanics on what we're doing within this campaign and let you kind of know what our campaign is doing to actually win this race in November. First thing is why did I run in the first place? Well, again, I do not love politics, right? I had someone ask me, like, why do you want to be a congressman? I said, well, it's not that I want to be a congressman. What I want to do is fight for the ideas and the things that I believe in, right? I believe in the idea of the American experiment, and I think that American experiment is rooted in certain philosophical principles. Individual liberty, private property rights, personal responsibility, the idea that any human being, any person has the right to be able to pursue happiness in accordance with their definition of it, not some politician's definition of it. And I think that if we lose that in this country, and let's face it, we are seeing a lot of people that don't believe in that anymore in this country. If we lose it, there's no place to escape to, right? This is it. I spent 11 years in the military. I went to over 20 countries between my military service, between working in Christian missionary fields. And I can tell you right now, there's some beautiful countries out there. There's some great countries out there, but there is nowhere else that I would rather raise a family. There's nowhere else that I was willing to fight for like I am the United States and what we have in this country. And that's why I'm doing this. It certainly isn't because I enjoy hanging out in Washington, D.C., right? I like hanging out on my little house out here in Culpeper County, Virginia. It's beautiful. It's in the Piedmont. I like sitting out on my porch. It's quiet. I've got a gun range in the back. I love it, right? That's where I like spending my time, with my wife, with my kids, with the community that I live in and I'm raising my family in. But the bottom line is the fight is up in D.C., and we have to have people that are willing to leave the comfort of everything they know and love to be able to go into those hostile environments. And I feel like, asking me why I want to go to Congress is like asking me why I wanted to go to war. I didn't want to go to war. There was a war. It was my responsibility to fight in it. And that's an extension of that to me. It's an extension of fighting for hearts and minds, of fighting for an idea that I think is not only true, but I think is truly beautiful. And that is the American experiment, that idea that each human being has inherent worth, that they are created, beautifully and wonderfully created in the image of God with a unique purpose to fulfill, and it is their right to seek the best way to fulfill that purpose. And how dare any government or how dare any person attempt to try to micromanage or control people through the force of government. So that's why I'm doing this. And it has been exciting. Campaigning during a pandemic is truly unique. I've obviously campaigned before because I'm a member of the Virginia House of Delegates. I serve in the General Assembly. And typically in a campaign, you're out there, you're knocking doors, you're holding events. And those things are great, right? I like doing that. You're doing a lot of fundraising. I don't like fundraising. No candidate likes fundraising, right? But you got to do it. But during a pandemic, we had everything shut down. And so now you're having to find other venues in order to communicate with people. And that's one of the reasons why this podcast started. We had talked about doing this, several months before we actually got it off the ground. But if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we might have been doing other things. And I'm at least, as much as I want the pandemic to stop, I'm at least grateful that I had people on our staff that were able to put this together and give us an opportunity to be able to talk with people, to be able to get that out there and have those long form conversations. Our social media live, we do Facebook Live town halls every Tuesday at 8 o'clock. That's been a great experience because even if I can't get out there to a room full of people and answer their questions, there's no reason why I can't do it online. And again, because of the great team that we have, and people always wonder, like, where do my campaign donations go? it goes to stuff like this. It goes to a team that's able to make sure that we have a professional-looking podcast, professional-looking social media presence, so that we can get out there and really talk to people and answer their questions. And especially within the podcast, this allows us to do the long-form conversations. Right? When you're doing the town halls, when you're doing the events, you usually have 2 to 3 minutes to answer a question. And let's face it, we all know some of these questions are far more complex or nuanced than a 2 or 3 minute answer can provide. So when we have 30 to 40 minutes to be able to go over it, it's a huge advantage for us. And then we're able to take those clips, we're able to put them out there and let people see where we really stand. The social media component, I'm just going to go over this a little bit more, is really become important too, especially for Republicans, because the press is constantly either manipulating, sometimes they're outright lying about what we say, they misrepresent what we say. And so being able to go directly to the people through a podcast, through social media, has just been critical for us. And again, in our campaign, it's actually unique. We have twice the social media presence as the incumbent Democrat, and that's almost never the case. Usually the challenger is playing major pickup when it comes to being able to reach out to people through social media platforms, and we already have twice the presence of our challenger. So we're looking forward to that, and we're going to continue to do more with that as the campaign progresses. And so, signing up to watch our podcast, to listen to our podcast, to look at the Facebook Live town halls, all of that is critical to stay up to date with what's going on. And one of the things that we're going to continue to do is as we move into more podcast episodes and we talk about making the argument, we're going to talk about the policy positions. So it's, what is the conservative argument for healthcare? What is the conservative argument for taxes? What's the conservative argument for regulations, for transportation spending, for education, for foreign affairs, national defense? We're going to go over all of those, and I'm really looking forward to that because I've had a lot of people tell me that Republicans, you just vote no on everything. You don't have answers, you just vote no. Well, we do vote no a lot, and it's primarily because we think the government's doing a lot of things it was never intended to do. But no, conservatism, that liberty-based approach to problem solving actually has a lot to say on all these issues. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of Republicans that are willing to go into that in great detail, and we need more of it. We need more of these debates, and we need to be able to equip other people to be able to make these arguments. Right? One of my jobs as an elected official is to not only vote the right way, carry the right legislation, but to make the arguments in such a way that you can see them, that you can share them, and that you can feel confident when you're talking to that neighbor, that boss, when you're talking to your kid that came home, went off to college as a patriotic, flag-loving, American, has come home to Marxist, right? And parents want to know, how do I engage with my student? That's what we want to do. We want to provide you with those arguments, and this podcast is going to allow us to do this throughout the entire campaign. So if you've ever wondered about how do I make a good conservative argument for those issues that really matter to me, stay tuned to this podcast because we're going to be doing this all through November and beyond. One of the things I also want to do real quick, I want to thank all the people that showed up to the convention. We had a really unique nominating contest. If you don't live in Virginia, some states don't have conventions. You just do a primary, which is just showing up to your polling location like you normally would. Well, in Virginia, one of our methods of nomination is a convention. You've got to pre-file to be a delegate. You've got to show up on convention day. You might have to be there for multiple rounds of voting because in a convention, you can't win with just the most votes. You have to win with over 50% of the vote. And so we had 6 candidates in the race. Voting started at 8 a.m. We weren't done until, I think after 7 p.m. is when we finally got the results. And we won very handily. But we only won because we had a lot of people, over 2,500 delegates showed up in the hot sun. It was like 103 degrees out. But they showed up, they stayed, they voted because they care about the direction of their Commonwealth. They care about the direction of the country. The other candidates they worked incredibly hard. And a lot of times after these nominating races, it is hard for the candidates that didn't win, and I know because I've been there, to really get behind and unify around the ticket. And I'm proud to say that all the other candidates did. We're all excited about winning in November. And again, it was a great experience, but I can't thank those delegates enough for showing up to it. The other thing I want to talk about is the team that we have, from our campaign manager to our field director, treasurer, fundraisers, audio-visual, field directors, policy directors. When people ask, where does all my campaign funding or campaign donations go to, because they're tired of getting mail or they're tired of getting phone calls, I have to tell you, you want to talk about the team that we have put together and just how incredibly hard they work. Everyone in this team is like under 30, right? These are young people that care about the direction of their country. They're passionate about policy. They're passionate about the conservative philosophy. They're passionate about liberty. And they work 6, sometimes 7 days a week, and they're working like 12-hour days. And they just do a phenomenal job. And if you want proof of that, our fundraising numbers have been very, very good. I mean, we have to raise a lot of money in this race because it's one of the top 5 races in the country. Top 5 in the country. It is an absolute must win in order to win back, for Republicans to win back the House of Representatives seat. And if you want to help with that, you can always go to nick4va.com, shameless plug. But again, people ask where that money is spent. Well, yeah, there's flyers, there's phone calls, there's text messages. The text messaging has actually been really important because I actually think it's a far better way to communicate with people because you get links to information, to events, to fundraising things. I don't think it interrupts your meal the same way a phone call does. But if you look at all the things that we're doing within this podcast, even within our social media, our audio-visual team just does an incredible job. I mean, a lot of time and effort goes into everything from making sure we got good backdrops to good lighting. And I'm telling you right now, it takes a lot of lighting to make me look good. And I'm sorry, it's no reflection on my parents. My mom's beautiful, right? But unfortunately, I didn't get all the good genes. So we need a lot of lighting to make me look good. But when you talk about the time and effort that they go into making these videos and making sure that we get the graphics in there and everything else, so it's actually entertaining to watch, right? And the response has been overwhelming. To give you an idea, most Republicans, when they get out there and they do a Facebook Live town hall, we do one every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Most of them, when they get out there and do one, maybe 500 views. Maybe 1,000 views if it's a really good one. Ours average, every single Tuesday, average over 10,000 views. And again, a lot of that is because our team does the right thing and making sure that the information goes out there, that people know about it, that we put together a professional production. My wife always comes on and helps me. If you ever watch it, Tina's there. If you see Tina, you're going to think, oh my gosh, how did he manage that? We had a graduating class of 27, man. It's my high school sweetheart. She didn't know she could do better, and I married her before she had a chance to find out. But one of the things that you're going to see throughout this campaign that's been really encouraging too, a lot of people try to caricature Republicans as it's the party of like old white guys. If you would have showed up on convention day and watched all these people sitting out in the hot sun for 8 hours, 12 hours in order to elect somebody, you saw such a great cross-section of people within the 7th district. You saw younger people, you saw older people, you saw, all races represented because when you look at what we actually believe as a party, we focus on individual liberty. We don't try to cram people into these neat little politically convenient demographics where we just assume that you all think the same way based off of your gender or based off of your skin color. We see people as so much more than just those things. And when you treat people that way, they become impassioned about but actually preserving it and preserving their opportunity and the opportunity for their kids to move forward. And that's one of the things that we're looking at when we get on the debate stage. People have asked me, they're like, okay, Nick, you won the nomination, but now you're in a much bigger fight. And I've always said, yeah, but this is the fight that I want. Right? It's no fun fighting against other Republicans, and that's why we really tried to make it a clean race because we didn't want to denigrate people that really we agree with 95% of the time with. But now that we're moving into the race against Abigail Spanberger, we want that debate. We're going to be challenging to multiple debates. We're going to be streaming those debates whenever we can because that's where this really comes down. This whole thing is not just about Republican versus Democrat. Right? This is about two different worldviews. How do you view the future of your country? Do you think the future success of our country is going to be predicated on more government control over your life, more federal bureaucracies, more federal programs, higher taxes, more regulations? I mean, if you think we're just one more law away from perfecting society, well then my opponent would be a very, very good selection for you. But if you really believe that the best days are ahead of us only because we believe in preserving individual liberty, we believe in that free people working in voluntary cooperation do a much better job to solve problems and overcome challenges than a government bureaucracy does, well then I'm your guy. And I want to see the debate take that route, right? And too many of these debates, what you often see is the moderators the moderators have a favorite, and you'll see Republicans either kind of shy away from calling the moderators out on it or really, rephrasing the question the way it should be asked. Because again, the primary difference between me and Abigail Spanberger, and look, she's a nice lady. She's well-educated, very intelligent. I have nothing against her personally. But the primary difference between us is not just that we differ on tax policy or regulatory policy or healthcare reform. The primary difference is she has a much more authoritarian view of the world than I do. I have much more faith in people to work together to solve problems than I do handing over the power and authority to the government to solve a problem. And she takes the opposite view. Now, she might talk a good game about freedom and individual liberty, but ultimately, when you look at her approach to problems, it always seems to include more taxes, more regulations, more government involvement and control. And again, I just think that it is a dangerous route to go down, because we have already seen, and we've seen it especially within the COVID crisis. You look at the way a lot of Republican governors have managed things versus you look at the way the Democrat governors have. It's almost like some of these people are relishing in the power that they have by declaring a state of emergency, suspending civil liberties, which I don't believe they have the constitutional authority to do, and then just lording over people and saying it's all for your own good, and if you don't do what we want, then you're a bad person, we're going to punish you, and you want people to die, right? It's about time that we actually stand up on that debate stage and actually make a good, coherent argument for why emphasis on liberty, emphasis on free markets, emphasis on personal responsibility is what has made this country great in the first place. It's what will continue to propel us into the future in a positive light, but only if we actually stand up and fight for it. And I think that's the sort of debate that we have, right? It's not just about, well, you think the taxes should go up by 5% and I think they should go down by 20%. No, it's about getting down to what is the whole problem with this system in the first place. And the problem is that it's based on Abigail's belief that, well, of course the government needs more money because the government needs to solve a problem. Whereas I'm saying, no, you need more money because you're far better at solving the problems in your life than some far removed bureaucrat in Washington, D.C., right? And so I'm looking forward to this. We're going to challenge, I think, to at least 5 debates. Hopefully we'll get 3. Most likely we'll only get 1. But look, if she's not willing to debate me, then we'll just have more town halls, and I'll let her supporters get up there and ask. If she's not willing to ask questions and engage in dialogue, then we'll give her supporters the opportunity to do that. Because at the end, Democrats are not my enemy. Right? My enemy is a philosophy that teaches people to believe that they can't solve their own problems or live their own lives, and so they need some politician to take care of them. I really cannot stand that political philosophy, right? But I see people that fall into that as being trapped in it, right? I see that as someone I got to rescue, not as someone that's my enemy. You know, the motto of Special Forces when I served as a Green Beret was De oppresso liber, to free the oppressed. And I really feel like that's not just a motto for a unit that I take great pride in having once belonged to. I think it's really a life mission. And so we'll continue to do that. So we've had a lot of people ask us how can they help, how can they support. Well, first of all, the very fact that you're watching this podcast does help us. I really appreciate it. We monitor and we track to make sure that we're putting out content that you actually want to see. Sharing this with other people is huge. The other thing too is that if you want to help us out, if you want to contribute, if you live in Virginia, if you live in the 7th District, we need more people to volunteer and support. So you can go to nick4va.com. That's Nick, F-O-R-V-A.com. And you can find out more about what the campaign's doing. Also, follow us on Facebook. If you're already following us on YouTube in order to watch these podcasts, if you've already downloaded on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, great. Leave us a review. You give us a 5-star review, it actually helps other people find this. You can literally do it in 5 seconds, and it's one of the best ways that you can get these arguments out to other people. But definitely share it with your friends. Again, we're going to continue to do this as long as we can pay to do it, as long as we have the campaign donations that allow us to be able to put out valuable content for people. And so one of the things I want everyone to understand is that when people donate to our campaign, it's not going into the hands of a bunch of consultants. It's really going into practical ways that we can help not only our campaign, but help other conservatives be able to make the arguments that are really going to win the day. Because it's not just about showing up and voting. It's about talking to friends, talking to neighbors, talking to family, and being able to use the arguments that are going to convince them and win them over to our way of thinking. And that's what we need more of. And so, again, the more we can do, the more we can actually fundraise in order to keep the lights on and keep this going, the more content that we can put out. And we really want to continue to do this, not just up to Election Day. We want to do it beyond. Once we're in Congress, we want to make sure that we're continuing to keep you informed about policy decisions, about what's going on behind the scenes. And so we want to continue to do this for as long as we possibly can. And I will say this, we've got 4 months, really less than that. The general election is November 3rd. So if you do like what you're seeing with this podcast, if you like what our campaign's doing, because we're doing a lot of things that are different and unique, and again, we are running in one of the top 5 races in the country. So if this is something where you want to get involved and you want to help us out, again, I would really encourage you, follow us on social media, go to nic4va.com, learn more about what we're trying to do from a policy perspective, from a campaign perspective. Hey, if you're close by, show up to one of our events. We would love to meet you. And when you meet us, tell us that, hey, you watched the podcast, you watched the Facebook Live Town Hall. I love it when we can get feedback on that and we can do more in order to make sure that, again, you're getting the content that's relevant to you. But this race it's going to come down to the wire. Our race will probably be decided within, 3 to 4 points. And as the 7th district goes, so Virginia will go. As Virginia will go, that's going to have a huge impact on the country, because if we can take back the 7th district, it puts us in a great position to take back the House of Representatives. And if we can't, it's going to be almost impossible to take back the House without the 7th district. So we really do need help. We really need people to come on and fight alongside us. And that's what we're going to do. Right? This is not something where we're going to do some sort of, grand, bashful apology tour all the way to Election Day. We're going to fight incredibly hard for the values that we believe in, and we're going to do so in a way that you can be proud of, and we would love to have you be a part of that. And so if you're looking for a way, if you see what's going on in the country right now, and you are frustrated, and you are angry, and you are thinking to yourself, I'm not an angry person, but I'm angry about what's going on, and I want to do something that can have an impact. I'm telling you, this race can have an impact. I would not be sitting here doing this, putting my family through everything that we go through by being a candidate and being in the public spot, if I didn't think it was worth it to fight for the values that we all share and care about. And if you're looking for one of those races across the country, which can have the biggest amount, where your service, your support could have the biggest amount of impact, I'm telling you, this is one of them. And you don't got to take my word for it. You can read the Cook Report. You can read all the reports coming out by the different organizations that are watching races across the country. This is a must-win for us, and it is one that we can win. Right now, we have a Democratic control. We've just got new data showing that this is an R+7 district, which means that Republicans have a 7-point advantage if our people come out and if we can get the resources necessary in order to fight in the way that will, again, make you proud and lead us to victory in November. So look, I want to thank you all again for watching the podcast. Thank you to all the volunteers, all of our campaign staff, all the delegates that showed up last Saturday. We are really excited about going forward. Again, this is, I feel amped up again. There was those times in Iraq where you're going out on a mission, you feel good about what you've done, you feel good about your training, you feel prepared, and you are ready to hit the objective. That's how I feel right now. I went from one battlefield that was a physical battlefield to the battlefield of ideas. We are trained, we are prepared, we have the right people in place, and we're really excited about this. We would love for you to join us. We will see you next Monday, where we'll be having another podcast going over some of the issues that we're going to be talking about in this campaign. And as always, equipping you with the arguments to be able to successfully debate this with your friends, family, coworkers, college students, everything that you need to be successful and feel confident in your principles. So please continue to tune in, and also make sure you send us questions. We want to make sure that, once again, we are providing content that you want to see. So thank you very much, and we will see you next time.